What was the inspiration for your piece in this exhibit?
I was fortunate enough last fall to be able to spend a little time in a cabin up in the Keweenaw Peninsula. And it was just beginning fall and the colors were gorgeous. It's the first time I had been up there. And, you know, the beauty of that place is just phenomenal. And it was one of those things almost bombarded by colors and shapes and just all sorts of things. So I took lots of pictures, and when I came home, I was able to go through them. And then eventually, you know, the pandemic dampened my creative interest for a while, but once it kind of came back and picked back up, those are the pictures that I referenced. And I came out with a really lovely watercolor.
That's very nice. I'm actually from the UP, so I find that very interesting.
I'm originally from Oklahoma, and we have moved. My husband's in radio, and so we move quite often. And every time we move, we try and go north because I love snow and I can never get enough snow. And, you know, I would love to be able to go to the UP in the winter.
It's quite the place during the winter. But what is a typical day in your studio like, and where do you like to work, I guess?
I'm fortunate. I have a spare bedroom that I've been able to dedicate, and that's where I do most of my work. I do some plein air, but I find I tend to be controlling, which is not unusual for me. It was that way before I retired. I'm kind of cerebral in my thinking when I do art. So I find working in the studio for me is just a little better.
And then what would a typical day be like if you could spend like the whole day in your studio, I guess?
Oh, I would say get up. Hopefully it's a sunny day. I'm fortunate I've got good light in here when it's sunny, but when it's not, the artificial light just isn't quite the same. And I think we're going to be visited by a friend, perhaps. But get up, go through I have lots of photos and things on my phone. And sometimes I'll do that the night before, and I'll pick maybe a half a dozen images that it's like maybe tomorrow, you know, one of those will click. Mm-hmm. And I'm not as disciplined as I know most professional artists are, because they're able to just, you know, like a writer, block off this amount of time and write or create. I have to kind of have a motivation. And some days, if it's there, I can paint all day and into the night. If it's not there, then I try just to play. And I've been working on a painting today, and it's sort of like, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So it's sort of like, well, just try that. Just play with that. Try that color with that color. And then sometimes something magical happens.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. Interesting way to take it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then what has inspired you to work in your specific medium?
I am one of those people that like everything. So I've done pastel, I've done oil. I wasn't thrilled with acrylic because I like to have the time to kind of work with it and move it around. Watercolor, I find, is for me the most difficult, because to me there's an immediacy and you really have to think about it before you start, which I like because, again, I tend to be more cerebral. But what I find is once I start laying paint down on paper, it has its own mind. And I like that because it forces me out of that. I'm going to control this. You can only control so much with watercolor. And what I find is the key to successful watercolors is knowing when to stop, to just leave it alone, walk away. You can always come back later. You can leave it alone for a week and come back and you'll see something. I tend to want to get it all right then and there. And so during the pandemic, that's part of the thing I've been trying to work on is just do so much, stop, walk away. But in my former life, I managed nonprofits. And for instance, if I were writing a grant, you know, I'd start it and I might go till 3 or 4 in the morning, because it's like once you're on a roll, you just want to keep going. But with writing, you can edit much easier than you can with a painting. And so this has been a real challenge for me, but it's a challenge I needed.
Yeah, those are great answers. I really enjoyed hearing about your art, and I'm excited to see you.
Thank you. I'm anxious to see everybody's work.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett.